Hello and welcome to the Supercast. I'm your host, Superintendent Anthony Godfrey. She says working with him is like winning the lottery every single day at Fort Herriman Middle School. On this episode of the Supercast, we take you inside teacher Kimberly Mendenhall's classroom, where a volunteer by the name of John Titus has become a priceless part of instruction. Mr. Titus spends every minute he can helping to change the lives of students with his love for learning. Despite being retired, John shows up for students and Ms. Mendenhall almost every single day. We're here in Kimberly Mendenhall's classroom at Fort Herriman Middle School to learn a little bit about what you're doing here, but let's start off with an introduction of your longtime dedicated volunteer here in the class.
You bet. So this is Mr. Titus. His name is Jonathan Titus, and I will actually let him introduce himself.
Hi. I've been volunteering here now for probably 5 years and came down and just made contact with Kim Mendenhall and have enjoyed the experience immensely. It's a great school, great staff, excellent teacher. My background is actually in science and chemistry. I've got college degrees. When I worked on my doctorate, I used mini computers at the time, small microwave-sized computers or refrigerator-sized, and I found that I was much more interested in that than chemistry.
Yeah.
So my brother and I started an electronics consulting firm and designed and built electronic equipment for people. We also did a lot of writing about electronics and computers, wrote a number of books. And then I went to work for a publishing company. I became the chief editor of 2 electrical engineering magazines.
Wow.
And then retired, and we moved out here.
Now tell me what year you started working with small computers.
Probably 71 or 72, so that's back a ways.
Wow, way back in the
Way
1900s.
back. Yes.
And that's, so you've been in on the ground floor of this for a long time.
That's true, yes.
Well, it's such an incredible opportunity for Kim to have you as a resource in the classroom and for the students to have access and the chance to learn from someone who's been a part of computers from the start, really.
Well, thank you. I just enjoy it immensely, working with the students and working with Mrs. Mendenhall. I just enjoy being here, and I enjoy seeing the progress that the kids make.
Tell me about Kim Mendenhall as a teacher.
Outstanding. She loves the kids. She really does. Even when they're acting up, she loves them too.
Through and through.
I can't say enough good things about her. I really enjoy working with her, and I think we make a good team, volunteer and teacher.
Well, that's obvious that great things are happening because of the work you do together. That's dynamite.
And he's being very modest. When John says that he has dabbled in the computer electronics world, he actually has one of the first personal computers sitting in the Smithsonian. So something that I have in my classroom that he has lovingly gifted to our school is a plaque. So this is one of the magazines that distributed early information about computers. It's called Radio Electronics. It's from July 1974. It's the cover of it. It also has one of the very first personal microprocessors.
Wow. And you had that in the Smithsonian. I was so distracted by Fonzie's leather jacket and the ruby slippers that I missed that computer.
Well, you wouldn't see it because it's in the archives.
Okay.
And if you're a researcher, you can go look at all the material. You can probably take it out and take it apart and look at it in the Smithsonian.
So it's stored in the archives of the Smithsonian?
Yes, it is.
It was on display at a certain point?
They had an information age display back in the 80s, maybe early 90s.
I was there in the 80s. Maybe I saw it.
Maybe you did.
But now, to see it, I would have to go
it.
back. It's like in the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
At the end where you go
All
through all
those
the
dusty
wooden crates.
boxes.
Yeah,
That's it.
okay. It's
Yeah.
somewhere in one of
Yeah.
those. Okay. Wow. So impressive and such an incredible opportunity for students to have access to someone who's worked with computers for such a long
I'm
time.
happy to share what I know with them.
Now, we're standing in front of 2 tables put together with about a dozen trays that each have an experiment here. So talk me through some of the basic experiments that students may go through.
Yeah. So I teach computer science classes, Python, computer science investigations, computer science principles. And one of the elements of that class is trying to get them into something that's more hands-on. There's very few items that allow us to do that in the computer science world without making it yourself.
Sure.
So these experiments were mine and John's idea to try to bring to life real things. For example, one of our experiments is a traffic light simulation. So this traffic light simulation has 2 boards, and the boards themselves are little electronic circuit boards that John has customized. They're also open source. You can get them and use them as you would like. But you send out for the board, you have to solder on the LEDs and the resistors, and then connect it to what's called an I/O board. And that I/O board then connects to what's called a microbit. Microbits are very common and they're tiny, maybe a 2 by 1.5 square that has buttons on the front, an LED 5 by 5 screen, and then you can program these microbits to do many different tasks. The microbit is the brain. It's like the computer that you're programming. So by connecting this to the breakout boards that we've done with the traffic light, students then are able to simulate a north, south, east, west style traffic light that they can then literally see when they create a function that goes through a green light, yellow light, red light sequence versus a stay on red sequence, and then it swaps, that they can see that happen in real time and in real life.
So the programming they do on this small board, which looks like what you'd find if you tore an old calculator apart,
Yes.
means that, they program this and they connect it to these lights that Mr. Titus ordered and put together. Now they've programmed essentially traffic lights going
Yes.
in each direction, and they program it to be sure that no theoretical traffic accidents happen.
Correct. And all of these experiments that we have very detailed step-by-step instructions with their goals, what we're trying to get them to do, how to help them see what each step of the process is doing. And then in the end, it gives them like different challenges. Okay, now that you've done this traffic light sequence, think of a different one you could try to program that
Yeah.
you might see if it's in the middle of nowhere at night and you just have a flashing yellow. How does that look? And could you create that instead? So that's the traffic light one. One of the kids' favorites is this joystick. So it's like what you would see in an arcade mounted on some plywood. It has another I/O board connected to the joystick, which you
Wires
then
running from the joystick to
Yes.
the I/O board.
And then you take the microbit and you plug it into that board.
Okay.
Now, the beauty of this project and the reason kids love it is because there's little LED dots on the top of the microbit, and those dots can be controlled with the joystick, but they have to do the programming to connect to the dots.
Okay.
So they are seeing all the stuff that they normally see either in their video games or on different consoles that they use, whether it's they went to the red box and they're using the touch screen and trying to make things work. They're seeing what's happening behind the scenes of that. Now, where this project gets really fun is there's a radio element to it. So the radio element is you have 2 microbits that have a radio capability incorporated onto the computer, and they can send a signal from one microbit to across my room. Now, my room is long, very long. So they could be 20 feet away plus. We've actually experimented with this.
I'm sure you
They
have.
have gone out into the halls around the
To see
school
just how far
to
that-
see how
that
far
radio
this signal will
frequency will
go.
go, yeah.
Anyway, but you could have a kid in this classroom using the joystick, and wherever the other student is that has the radio control option, it will send and it will put all of those little lights, and it will control those lights with the joystick that's 20 plus feet away.
Yeah. Wow. So even just with these initial experiments, they start to learn some rudimentary programming, and they start to see the impact that programming has and the uses it might have in the real world.
Correct. Yeah. So this one is super fun.
Okay, tell me about this one down here.
So Mr. Titus has cats. We also, at one point in time, did teach engineering, and we would launch rockets and 3D printing. So we took all of those concepts, kind of threw it all together into a single experiment. So we've got a 3D printed gear, which has been attached to a servo with 3D printed like track rails that are attached to an old rocket.
Okay.
And when you turn the servo will ultimately push the item, meaning the gear that's attached to the track, and it will push out a cat treat
Okay.
from the microbit that you can then control with the A button and B button. So this becomes event-driven programming.
Okay. So now what they see is I'm manipulating the physical world with the programming that I have done.
Yes.
Exactly. And they also measure things in the real world too. They can measure light intensity, and then their program can do something based on the light intensity. And also they can measure temperature. They can do remote control with infrared push button control like on a TV. So they really get a sense that computers connect to the real world, and this is how they do it.
So they start to get a sense that, hey, these things I'm learning could actually help people, and now I understand kind of the basics of how my TV works and how I can make my cat happier.
That's right.
Okay. Stay with us. When we come back, more with Kimberly Mendenhall and this valuable volunteer who takes time in his retirement to make a difference in the lives of teachers and students.
Are you looking for a job right now? Looking to work in a fun and supportive environment with great pay and a rewarding career? Jordan School District is hiring. We're currently filling full and part-time positions. You can work and make a difference in young lives and education as a classroom assistant or a substitute teacher. Apply to work in one of our school cafeterias, where our lunch staff serves up big smiles with great food every day. We're also looking to hire custodians and bus drivers. In Jordan School District, we like to say, people come for the job and enjoy the adventure. Apply today at employment.jordandistrict.org.
The pet feeder, the traffic lights, all of that leads to, kind of creates the basics for now some other programming of their own that they can go beyond. And you talked about
Yes.
block programming.
So they have block programming, but in Python, that's considered line programming.
Okay.
So I had a student send me an example of one of the programs we did in Python where he's using conditionals, he's using loops, he's using variables, and he has basically created a choose your own adventure game that is decently involved. So he called this the Peeler, and the Peeler is a goblin who is coming to battle with a bunch of different enemies. And these enemies that he has created vary in their strength. Mm-hmm. And so he's used a randomizer in there as well.
Okay.
And you have a set
To randomize the strength of the creatures that you
enemies.
fight? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And he has made it so that when you are up against a specific creature, you have he has 5 different options to choose from to attack this other odd creature. We're doing a Merlopian at the moment, and it says you can pick Fireball, Dusk Blast, Aquarian Storm, Thunder Blitz, or Stab.
Okay. A dusk blast?
Oh, Dusk Blast.
Is that like some kind of crepuscular weapon of some sort?
I wish I knew.
That just like, okay, nighttime.
Yeah, why not?
Wow, okay.
Sure.
A dusk blast might be me falling asleep on the couch. I don't know. Okay.
The creativity of students, it's amazing.
Wow,
I
a Thunder
wish
Blitz.
I knew.
I need to talk with this student
Yes.
and understand these weapons a little bit
He's
better.
fabulous.
This is really cool. It's amazing. So they learn the mechanics, they learn the programming, and now that opens up a whole world of creativity.
Yes.
Where they get to make some things of their own.
Yes, and so this particular game has no graphics at all. It is completely coded with just words. and it is just, the output is just text at this point. So we're trying now to go, we have these real world step-by-step experiments. We've now taught you some of the very basic fundamentals of line programming with Python.
Kind of like a choose your own adventure as the result.
Yeah. And then now they're trying to now take it to that next step where we do incorporate the graphics side of things. And a fast way, one of the fastest ways to do that is with these little, they're called kitten bots or meow bits. It's similar
Kitten
to...
bots or meow bits.
Help me, John.
And Python, named after Monty Python.
Yes.
Engineers have a really good time naming things,
They
don't
do. They love it.
Okay.
After things
Hey,
that they enjoy. So
I'm in. That's
kittens,
great.
I mean, that's right up Mr. Titus's alley.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. It's all coming together.
Yes. Okay, so this game, and I'll try not to reset it, but this particular game on a kitten bot. Now, a kitten bot is about the size of my palm.
Yeah.
And it has a look similar to an old school Game Boy.
Yeah.
It has an up, down, left, right, A-B button on it. It has a little LCD screen. It's basically a more advanced version of a microbit, but it only deals with what's called the Make Code Arcade. It's a Microsoft product that you can code on. And they have block-based programs. My students created this game in my 7th period today, where they have targets that are going across a screen. Your goal is to try to move the ball that's in the center to try to hit the target, and there is a bar at the bottom that decides how much energy the ball has to then be able to launch at that target. So now they're taking the skills of the conditionals, the loops, the randomization, and they're seeing them applied to something that they can physically now see and interact with, like a Game Boy.
So this goes beyond the choose your own adventure to a graphic
Yes.
game that is based on their programming.
Yes.
Over here in this part of the room, you have the two consoles, the arcade consoles. And this brings back a ton of memories for me, even though right now it's just raw wood, because I spent a lot of time playing video games in arcades. In junior high, I will say, I would take my lunch money and I would, and this is in the 1900s, I would run back downtown, because I was at a school downtown on a university campus. I would run to the arcade, spend my lunch money, and run back and make it just in time, not having eaten anything, but playing Tempest until I beat the final screen. So this is bringing back great memories, and to me, it's very worth the time, very much worth the time that you spent over the summer creating these consoles, because you're not saying, well, this is kind of like you could even play your game in an arcade. This makes it real for the kids.
Right, because they're the ones who are contributing the games.
Yeah, so you've created the shell, and they get to fill that with their own creativity.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So, first of all, these arcades are like 6 feet tall. They look like what you would go into if you were going to an old school arcade like Anthony described. This is just the plain wood, but we were talking about making it into something that may be a collaboration with our art teachers, or potentially vinyl sleeves for them even, to get them to like pop a little bit more. Right now they're still just, again, nothing fancy, raw wood, but they look like a traditional arcade system with joysticks and buttons and a screen, and the students can come in with their Python games, or we've talked to code.org, we've talked to Scratch. We are trying to get in touch with the Make Code Arcade to bring all of the different options for students to be able to create and bring their creativity, game making skills, programming skills onto a real life arcade. There's 2 of them, and they're run by a Raspberry Pi. You didn't get to see this. So the brain thing of this, old computers are just a board. Well, our board is maybe the size of my open hand. 4 inches by 2 inches.
Wow.
It's just this little Raspberry Pi, which is fitting for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But,
wow.
Yeah. So over the summer, we took the time, from, I want to say it's makecode.org, where they had an arcade layout. We took the dimensions that were there, and John came up with a plan for the design. And then I, with the help of my principal, was able to order all of the plywood to be able to create it's not a desktop. This is on caster wheels that lock. It is taller than I am. I'm 5'5". These are 6'5" maybe. And you can stand up next to it, hit it if you need to when you're frustrated, and it's not going to go anywhere. Like, they're really sturdy, strong machines.
So are you woodworkers on top of everything else?
One of the classes we did was engineering, and we were trying to show an engineering design process, fail or not. And this is what came of that. John's more of the engineer than I am, but I do know how to work in a shop. That's
impressive. And I would say you didn't cut corners, but you cut a lot of corners. Which getting these shapes requires a lot of cutting. And like I said, you went all in. You did everything you could to make this as realistic as possible.
That was the goal.
Yeah.
That was the goal. So the kids would really take to it rather than, as Kim said earlier, just a monitor and a keyboard and a mouse. This is it. This is a real arcade.
Yeah, this elevates it in a very meaningful way. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, but more than that, for creating this unmatched experience for students. What an incredible environment for them to learn in, and what an incredible opportunity.
Well, everything that I have done is open source. Any teachers within the district and outside the district are welcome to take advantage of what we've put together, and credit Mrs. Mendenhall for the opportunity to do it and also the encouragement to do it.
Well, the two of you are such a great combination, and I wish I could go back in time and take this class myself because it's lighting all kinds of circuits in my brain. So people who get to take your class. Yeah. So thank you very much for everything you do.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Nice meeting you.
Very nice meeting you as well. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Supercast. Remember, education is the most important thing you will do today. We'll see you out there. And if you like what you heard, subscribe and give us a 5-star rating.